Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a little video all about my very first birth with my first daughter. So this one, obviously, if you saw my last, I was well prepared. I knew exactly what to expect, but with my first, obviously I had never experienced birth before, so I didn't really know what to do. So the first thing I did was actually go and sign up for a hypnobirthing course with my husband. And so we did a hypnobirthing course, and I highly recommend it to anyone, even if you want to go down a drug route, if you do a cesarean, or if you have a natural drug-free birth. It all applies. It really just helps you to understand the way that your body and baby are working together during the birthing process. And it also talks about all of your options. So say if you didn't want to go down the drug route, you have other options that you can do to help you deal and manage with pain or contractions, etc. So with my first daughter, this was over 5 years ago. We went to a very busy hospital here in Brisbane City, and I just went in through the normal system. I didn't go private, I went through Medicare. So we were really lucky and we have a pretty good healthcare system. I started going there, I think I was about 20 weeks when you start doing your midwife appointments, and what you do is you get assigned a midwife group if you're low risk. And for me, I was low risk. I was 22 years old at the time, you know, no previous complications, etc. So I was low risk and I went straight to midwife care, not obstetrician care. So all of my appointments were fine, straightforward, and they assign you a group, and it's supposed to have about 7 or so midwives in that group, in hope that you get to meet each of them during your appointments, and then on your actual birth you have someone that you already know. But in my case, that didn't happen, and I don't know if it's just because it's such a busy hospital, but I didn't have reoccurring midwives and I didn't, you know, any of the thing and on the birth. But one thing I did do, and I highly recommend this to especially new mums, or maybe a mum that can't afford a specific support team. For me, with my second birth, I hired a doula. My first time round, I probably couldn't have afforded that. So I signed up to a trainee midwife who was doing her university course. And so she was able to actually come to each of my appointments and be there on my birth, which really helped me feel supported and safe in those moments. So I just had this innate feeling that I was going to be going into labor early on, and not like extremely early, but I was like, I definitely don't feel like I'm going to hit that 40-week mark. And 38 weeks came and I was like, I'm sure this baby's coming soon. And then as soon as I hit 39 weeks, my daughter came. It was a Sunday morning. I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I woke up with a little bit of like pain, contraction-y, period kind of vibes. And I was like, oh, okay. Went to the toilet and I had lost my plug, which means like it's like bloody show, whatever you refer to. So it's a little bit of mucus with a bit of blood in it. And I woke up so excited. I think it was about 5 o'clock, and I went into my husband. I was like, I'm going into labor. And he was like, don't get excited. Like, you're 39 weeks. This is your first baby. Like, you need to calm down. I was like, nah, I'm in labor. So immediately I started putting on some songs that I love, started dancing, started like really trying to get my body moving and embracing contractions. So yeah, I was really trying to focus in on increasing my happy and love hormones so that I could get labor going. And I really had it in mind that I wanted to have a natural and drug-free birth. So I knew that in order to do that, I needed to increase my happy hormones. And I had a nice shower and I was putting on my hypnobirthing track, and I was really just enjoying those moments and just swaying and dancing with my husband, and it was beautiful. Anyway, I called the hospital ahead of time and I said, look, I'm in labor. And they were like, okay, you know, first time mum, you're not going to have this baby anytime soon. So they were like, you know, pop a Panadol and go about your day kind of thing. And I was just like, okay. So I didn't take a Panadol. I just got off the phone and I just started having some food and water and just kept doing what I had learned from hypnobirthing. And then we were getting a bit hungry. We were like, okay, maybe we should go and have some food. So we walked across the road to the shops, and I was definitely in labor at this point. So I was having like mild contractions in the shops, and I'm like breathing heavily. And like people were looking at me like, what the? But it was fine. Like, it was really great to just be walking around and getting my body moving. And so I'm like in the aisles of the shops, like hanging over the shopping trolley, like And then we walked back home. I had some snacks. It was like tuna and avocado on crackers. I don't know why I was craving that, but anyway, that's what I had as my last snack. So I ate that, and I also thought like I wanted to eat some food before we go in case they'd stop me from having food. And we spent a few more hours, and then I kind of got to a point where I started getting a bit anxious, and I was like, you know, I don't know how long until I'm gonna have this baby. Like, can I be doing this at home? Like, I was just kind of having those first time thoughts as a mother and kind of getting a bit in my fear center. So I ended up calling my midwife, trainee midwife, and I let her know. She said, you know, just go in. And so I said, okay. So we packed our bags, we went in, and by this point I think it was probably about 11 or so. So like I wasn't in deep labor. Like the contractions were very manageable. They weren't extremely painful or anything, but it was just more of my mental load that I was wanting to go in and just affirm that like everything's going well. So I went in there, and they took a long time actually to take me anywhere. So I was sitting in this little sitting room with my husband with no one else, and I was like having to get up and down like as the contractions were happening. And they ended up giving us this room. We went into this room, and a midwife came in and she checked me, and she put like a monitoring band on. If I have the photos, I'll pop them in here. So we put the monitoring band on, and they were just like checking the contractions, and everything was fine. And then she was like, I'm just gonna do a stretch and sweep. So she just did a stretch and sweep, and that kind of like got things progressing. She said that I was about 2 or 3 centimeters dilated at that point, and I was just like, okay, fine, like let's just do that. And as soon as she did that, my husband was like, I'm gonna go down to the car and park it in a permanent space and bring all our bags up. And then I was just like, okay. And then the midwife was like, I'm just gonna go, I'll come back soon. So I was like left in the room alone, and then suddenly like they just amped up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is getting like a bit painful, a bit intense. How am I going to deal with this? Like no one's with me. So I was just kind of like trying to breathe, and then my husband finally came back, and it felt like forever, but I just kept focusing on my breath, and that was helping me a lot. And then we went into, they actually put us into like the ward with mothers and their babies, so because there was no room in the birthing suite that they had told us. So I was having to then labor in the ward next to a mum. Like there was a curtain between us, but it was very small. Like it was just a single bed and then curtains around. So she was on the other side with her newborn baby, and she had like visitors and stuff, and I'm on the other side of the curtain like fully in labor. Like what the heck is going on? I just remember at this point like my mindset just wasn't so good back then, and I wish I could really, you know, affirm to me at that point that like it's okay, like you're just experiencing the natural cycle of birth, and that, you know, it will be over soon. And just to really focus and hone in on that breath, because that's what really keeps you centered during birth, and that's what helps your body keep going. So I was just getting really stuck in my mind a lot, and I had a little bit of a breakdown moment, started crying to my husband, and obviously he tried to support me how he could. We had no midwives or anything with us. They kind of just plopped us in the room, and then I ended up like calling the bell for a midwife, because I was saying like, I'm really not feeling good, I don't know what to do, this is really intense, I can't handle this, I've got no space, all of the things. And they gave me a birthing ball, so I tried to bounce on that, and then I bounced on it, and it like bounced into the curtain where the other mum was. I was like, okay, this is not a good idea. And then so I had a shower, and that actually helped me a lot, like the hot water on me, and just like focusing on my breath and just being in my own space. And so that was really good. And then I came out of the shower probably after like 15 or so minutes, and I came back in. I was like, I'm actually still not coping well with this. And so the midwives came back in, and they said, I asked them if they could check me and see how far along I was now, because a few hours had passed. I think 4 hours had passed at this point. So it would have been about 3 or 4 o'clock. And this midwife came in, and she said, I'm not checking you. And I said, can you please just check me? I really want you to check me so I can see where I'm at, because I need to decide what I'm doing here. And she said, no, I'm not going to check you. And then so we asked for another midwife to come in, and then she said, yeah, just check her. It's been 4 hours. That's like okay to check her. So she checked me, and she said, oh, you're 4 to 5 centimeters. And at that point I actually broke down, because I was like, I'm not even anywhere near 10 centimeters. And how am I going to cope with this? So they then asked this other midwife who I had previously seen during my like lead up appointments, and she came in and she said, look, here's an option. We can do sterile water injections and see how you go. And so I was like, okay, actually great, like I have some kind of solution here. So I had to like kind of like lay like on the bed like this with my arms, and they injected the sterile injections into my back, and I actually have to say that they were pretty intense, like pretty painful, more intense than the contractions, but they really helped me. Like they really helped me with the pain of the contractions. So it's like a big kind of like bee sting, and once, I don't know if I'm in focus, and once they had done them, then it was feeling better. And so I just started listening to my hypnobirthing tracks again and just talking with my husband, and I ended up getting to a point where I said, okay, I think I'm gonna need to get an epidural. And when I said that, they said, okay, that's fine, we'll give you a birthing suite. So it made me realize that they weren't giving me a birthing suite because I wasn't taking the drugs. So they needed to make sure that anyone who was choosing, so other women that were in labor at that time, anyone who was choosing to have drugs like an epidural, they have a level of care that they have to take care of you, so they can't leave you alone. And at that point, because I had had no drugs, they could leave me alone, and because it's such a busy hospital, they could focus on other women. So as soon as I had committed to wanting to get an epidural, they gave me the room. So we started walking down there, and as we started walking down, my contraction just went up. By this point, it probably would have been about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, okay, wow, like this is a lot more intense, and I think this baby's coming. And so we text my student midwife, and she then met us at the hospital as we were getting into the room. So as we went into the room, another midwife came in, and she was on the phone trying to find me a dedicated midwife because this place was so busy, they didn't have anyone to take care of me. And she was like, while you're in here, and I was crying because I was just struggling mentally, she said, you can take the gas. So I had a sip, I had a breath of the gas, and it got stuck, and then I tried it again, it got stuck again, and she was like, oh, it's not working. So she was like on the phone like trying to get everything to work. At that point I was like, okay, I'm done, I'm not having this gas. And then I just turned to my husband and I was like, okay, I really need the toilet. And he was like, okay. So the midwife had left, and obviously us both being so unaware, that was my body starting to push. So I went into the toilet, and then this midwife walks back in the room and she's like, where's Brodie? And my student midwife arrived at the same time. They were like, where's Brodie? And he was like, oh, she's gone to the toilet she needs to go and do a poo. They were like, get her off the toilet, she's trying to push. And I'm like, oh, right, like that makes sense. So my body needed to push, so I came out, and that's what happened. So I came out and they said, let's lay you down, let's double check where you're at if your body's trying to push. So at that point they checked, and the midwife said, you're only 8 centimeters and I can feel your cervix is stuck. So she broke my waters and pushed my cervix, and then she said, okay, now you can push. So I started pushing at that point, and as I started pushing, a dedicated midwife came in who was absolutely amazing, and she was just beautiful. Like you could just feel her energy was so calming, and she really reassured me that my body knew what I was doing. And then Brad popped on our hypnobirthing tracks, and everything just really started becoming special, and it was just perfect, and it was perfect timing. And I'm really glad that we had that transition from almost like a chaoticness from the beginning to this soft, relaxing space at the end. And it was just, yeah, just perfect timing. My student midwife was there, and she was really helping, and Brad was helping, and Brad was doing some massaging on my back, and she was offering me to stand up and move around, like go in different positions on the bed as well as walking around the bed. And then at that point, as I was like really pushing, the anesthetist showed up. So that was for the epidural, and my midwife was like, look, Brodie, I know you want to do this naturally, you're pretty much done, this baby is about to come, you don't need to take this epidural, but if you want it, you can definitely have it, so we'll let him know. And then at that point I was just like, okay, no, we won't do it. So he went away, and just thank God for that timing. It was perfect again. Like I was so close to pushing my baby out, and I pushed her out and she came out and she was just so beautiful and perfect. And I had like a very, very tiny tear, so it didn't really need any stitches. And my midwife asked if I wanted to put the bubba on my chest, and she crawled up my chest because I was obviously naked. She crawled up, she did the breast crawl, and she found my nipple and started drinking, and it was just so magical. At first I was like, why is the baby not screaming? And my midwife just said she's just happy, she's content. And so that is my very first birthing story. Hypnobirthing, drug-free, natural, and though it seems like there was so much chaoticness, there was equally as much calmness and magic. And I think a lot of us get stuck in this thought of like, if something's so chaotic, it's only one-sided. But remembering that the pendulum always swings. So to the degree that I experienced the chaoticness, I equally experienced the magic, the calmness, the beauty. So that is my hypnobirthing story, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you didn't see my last one, that's on my second daughter's birth, which was a lot different. Again, so beautiful, so perfect, so divine. And I am a mindset coach. I help mothers overcome postpartum depression. So if you're interested in learning more about overcoming postpartum depression and learning some ways to shift your perspective on motherhood, or if you're really interested, I have a course that will be coming out very soon all about breaking through postpartum depression as a mother. So give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Please feel free to leave a comment. I love connecting with you guys, and if not, give it a subscribe so that you can be notified of my next video.